Today, I want to create a beacon that can switch between being diamond, emerald, iron, gold, and netherite at the push of a button. Why? Just a flex, really. I mean, we all know building a beacon, especially one from netherite or diamond, is one of the biggest achievements in the game. And what could be a better way to show off your rare resources than by introducing redstone into the equation and making a machine that can switch between the second best thing in the game, a diamond beacon, and the best thing, one made from netherite. So let's hop into a creative world and see what we can do.
So the basic idea is that we're going to have a series of tileable flying machines which come in, and first they're going to push the old beacon base out to the side. So I've just hooked up the basic shape to make the shape so that it matches the profile of the beacon so that we can preserve the beacon shape. And obviously this will all be hooked up to flying machines, but for now, just so they power together, I've hooked it up to a redstone line, and you can see it's all within the push limit, so that works wonderfully. Then once the beacon is pushed to the side, we'll have some sort of selection panel to select what material we want our beacon to be made from, so be it diamond or emerald or whatever. And then we'll have another flying machine with the same sort of profile as this to push the blocks back in. And the idea is that the staggered shape of these blocks will ensure that we get our beacon shape on the new beacon. Don't worry if you don't understand all this, because we're going to build it up and it should be pretty obvious as we go along what we're doing. So as I said at the start of the video, I've never actually built a flying machine in my life. So I'm going to try and zoom through this segment because a lot of you will have already seen flying machines or won't really care how they work. But I want to experiment with them and see how they work. So I think this should be a tileable flying machine. So let's just build it up with some redstone dust to get it going. And well, that didn't work.
Longer than I'd like to admit later.
I believe this should be a suitable flying machine for us to use. Yes, and indeed it is. So this is a two-way tileable flying machine. And now I've got to figure out a way to stop it. Let's just grab some obsidian. Oh my gosh. So we can replicate this over and over to make our flying machines. But I think the most obvious thing to do now is to get all the logic working to see what needs to pulse at what specific time.
I regret my decisions.
So there's been a change of plan, and I've done all of this in between the last jump cut and decided that actually it's a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. So after experimenting with some more layouts, I thought I'd try horizontally stacking the existing beacons. I tried vertically stacking them, and then I spent a while working on a piston pusher to come up with this over here. So this is not the final thing, this is just another step towards it. So I'll explain what's going on, and then I'll give you a demonstration of what we've got working. So let's start with the simplest thing, which are the two doors. So if I just activate this line over here, we get the door to come down. And this is just a bunch of flying machines that fly down to the bottom, and then we can activate this over here, and they fly up to the top, pushing tiled honey and slime block slices. And we've got the same on the other side as well, so we can go down like this and open up the side, and we can do this for both sides. So that allows the beacon to be pushed out to both sides using our piston pushers, and that's what I'm going to move on to next. So we've got one of them over here, and it's actually fairly bulky. I'm using 5 engines over here just because it makes it a lot easier. I've got 2 segments, the top 2 pistons with the observers to power, and the bottom 2. Then I've got the slices over here which sort of sync them up together. Then I've got a slice over here which is just a small flying machine extension, where we have each engine powers a 2-wide slice. So 1 wide, 2 wide, 2 wide, 2 wide, 2 wide, because obviously we've got an odd amount of slices for the beacon. So effectively we just get a piston wall that pushes, and these flying machines over here are actually special because they're self-returning flying machines, which means that when they hit an obstacle, they will return. So now it's time for the demonstration. Obviously at the moment we haven't got a beacon base in place, and that's because we'll have had our flying machine already come in to remove the beacon base that's existing there, so we can switch it out for a different one. So that's something we're going to do at a later date, but for now, just imagine that we've already removed that using our flying machines, and we're ready for the next base to come in. So this is what it will look like. As you can see, we've got a nice little room. Obviously, for the final thing, we decorate the back wall and stuff a bit more in a similar style to these walls over here. But the first thing that needs to happen is, of course, we need to pulse the wall to bring it down, and then we can do is pulse our flying machines, and these will fly in and they'll push the beacon base all the way in, and you'll see that they return once they get to the obsidian, which lines it perfectly up to the center. And then the flying machine flies back out, and we'd obviously close the wall up like so. So we'd post that line there, and there we go, we've got our beacon. So that's the extension of the beacon. But the more complicated part, which is the bit I'm going to work on now, is the retraction. So we need to build another one of these flying machines, almost identical to this one, on the other side, so that it can push the beacon back out through this wall. And this is the stage where both of the walls will need to come down, so that it can fly all the way through and push it to the side. So I think I'll install that one now, and there's going to be a little bit more complications, because we're going to have to figure out at what point the flying machine needs to actually stop, because we don't want it to stop when it gets to the same point as this one does, and it wants to actually go further and push the beacon all the way out of the room. So we've now installed 2 more flying machines, the one over here, which I said I would install in the last clip, and the one up here. And you may be wondering why we've installed 2 instead of just the one, and I'll go through that in a couple of minutes. So over here we've got our flying machine that pushes the beacon out to the edge, and although I said it would be similar to this one, and it is, it's actually also fairly different. One of the main reasons for this is because we have to have a gap through the middle here, since the beacon is an immovable object, so we have to sort of go past it, and we can't push the beacon. So there needs to be a gap in the middle for the beacon to go, so I had to do a lot of tinkering around to get that to work, and I finally got it to work. So we've only got 4 engines on this side, and we've got a couple of extra bits of redstone over here just to pulse these pistons. So over on this side we use obsidian to prevent the flying machine from sort of going back another block, so that there's a gap between this piston and this slime block, so that the piston can still push, and this whole extension behind here is not trying to push this whole mass, it's only trying to push this little segment. And we wanted to do that on this side over here, but we couldn't in some places, because obviously we'd hit the ceiling or we'd hit the obsidian on this side, which gets in the way. So what I decided to do instead was just have an extra line here, and we've got some obsidian dotted about for the rest of it, but on some of these we needed the extra line. So let's give a demonstration of what the flying machines do. So first off, I'm obviously going to retract the floors as we did before, and by the floors I mean the walls, and we're going to activate this flying machine as well. Now the purpose of this flying machine is to actually stop this flying machine over there so that it rebounds, because I couldn't use the same obsidian because it would get in the way of this flying machine, and I kept running into issues with the push limit. So instead of that, we just extend a wall down for this flying machine to hit. So I think I'll give you a demonstration, because that's what you're waiting for. So let's activate this line, and we should see that the flying machine heads off, and it starts to push our beacon all the way across to the side. So as you can see, it sort of lines it up against the flat edge. Obviously, the whole thing isn't lined up, but when it hits the wall, it will be. So as you can see, it lines it up like this, and then the machine starts to retract, just like so. And it will hit the obsidian, and then it will stop in place. So what we've actually done there is removed our beacon base and put it over here. So the idea would now be that we'd retract this flying machine over here, and I've actually used the target block over here, so that the redstone line, which updates the droppers, which activates the flying machines, also pulses these pistons over here, so that we get the extensions to retract. And I thought that was just a nice little dual use. But anyway, we can extract that there, and then what the machine would do is have a flying machine up here that would push all of these blocks down so that we can switch it out for a different beacon base. That's the thing that we're going to do next, but first I'm just going to imagine that it's swapped out, and then we can push it through with this one over here, and this doesn't interfere with any of this redstone, and we get our new beacon base coming over here, provided of course that we extend those pistons first, which I almost forgot to do. So the pistons here act as an immovable object, but we have to extend them because otherwise they'd get in the way of that flying machine, and that was the easiest way I could get around it. So with the walls extended all the way back up, you can see that we've got our beacon now installed in its proper formation, and all the flying machines are reset and hidden away. So the next step is to add a flying machine that will push the beacon base down, and then we need a bunch of flying machines that can switch out different beacon bases depending on the different layers. Wow, that is one big jump cut. It's been about a month since the last clip, and I've even changed my skin since the last clip as well. And that's because I got completely stumped on this project and thought I was going to have to give up and abandon ship. But luckily, I had some inspiration come to me and was able to figure it out with a lot of tinkering and some major changes. So this pushing flying machine over here, although the back end has remained mostly the same, I've had to modify this front end and add in some extra things here. Of course, the main things are I've added this flying machine and this flying machine down at the top and the bottom, and these went through many iterations and changed so many times. It's insane. I've also added all of this extra redstone pushing in from the sides just so that these flying machines are activated at the right times, and just changed a bunch of stuff in general. But anyway, you don't want to hear about how long I've been spending on this project. You want to actually see it in action. So let's show you what these flying machines do and why we need them. So I'll save you some time and I won't show you the flying machine pushing in the beacon base to the center again because you've already seen that and there's not really any point showing you. The functionality of it slightly changed, but aside from that, it works and that's all you need to know. The main thing is this extra flying machine at the top and the one at the bottom. And it was a lot of work to do this, so let's give it a demonstration. So you can see we've kind of got this weird sort of staggered shape here, and that's due to the way that pistons have a push limit, so I had to stagger them in order to get this to work. So it wouldn't be possible with any bigger size. So I got super lucky here, and I thought it wasn't going to be possible, but luckily, using this circuit down the bottom here, we're able to push the beacon in, so the base of the beacon in, like this, bam, so that it's staggered. And that way it matches up with this top thing. If it wasn't able to be staggered, then we'd be unable to make this project. So I'm super happy that I finally figured out that we could do this in order to get it to work. What we now do is we activate this top flying machine, and this will fly down and it will push all of these blocks down below the level of the ground. So as you can see, it stops here and the flying machine has pushed these blocks below the level of the ground. So this would mean if this flying machine were to push in a second beacon base, this one would actually be out of the way and wouldn't interfere with any of the redstone, which is great. What we can do is hit this button here, and that'll bring this rest of this flying machine all the way back up to the top, so we've cleared the space through. And that means that when we install the second beacon, so what we're going to swap between, we'll be able to push it in to the center without this one interfering. Now, pushing it back up is a similar challenge. I'd argue it's a lot easier. We've got, again, this staggered shape, although it's not strictly necessary on the bottom, but it makes it a lot easier to keep the stagger shape. And we have some more flying machines down at the bottom. We've got some here and some here. Activating this, we push up all of these here up to the right level. And we actually use a cool trick here where these observer blocks power these blocks here, which quasi-power these pistons, which means that effectively we get a moving piston wall. And we couldn't use this trick here because quasi only works sort of downwards, like powering from the top of a piston. Whereas we'd need to power from the bottom to employ the same trick here, which is why this top section was much more difficult and we had to go with the sort of checkerboard pattern. But anyway, once this has been moved up to the top, we then use these pushers on the other side and we power these like so. And this means that the beacon base is perfectly lined up once again, instead of having the weird staggered shape that we had. What we can then do finally is activate this line here and this line here, and that will cause this flying machine to go down to the bottom, so we're back to our position that we started in. As I said before, we've actually made some changes to the redstone. The major one is due to the fact that we have these glazed terracotta blocks here now. Without these glazed terracotta blocks here, we would not be able to use the sort of quasi-powering system for the bottom one, which would again make this impossible. Which is why we had to change this flying machine up here, so we can see there's no blocks below this level. And instead of using the obsidian block here to stop the flying machine, we actually employ a cool new trick. So actually I am going to show you that now. We extend these two blocks here like so, and then we extend this flying machine. So you can see we've got basically 4 blocks in a row here, and combined with the 9 blocks from the beacon, that's more than the push limit, which is 12, which means that effectively it's the equivalent of being obsidian there, because it can't push past the push limit. So I really like that cool trick that I employed, and of course the top of the flying machine still uses the push limit, so I actually am going to show you this once again. I know I said that I wouldn't. But we activate this button here, we do the cool new stuff that I added to prime the flying machine before use, and then the flying machine flies off and pushes the beacon towards the center like so. And you can see it doesn't interfere with any of the glazed terracotta, although it does get close. And when it reaches the end, you can see it all lines up perfectly to create a beacon. And then it retracts. Amazing. So cool. So we've actually got the majority of the system working now. We can just retract this here, and we've got the beacon there. But the next thing to do is install a second beacon, because obviously this wouldn't be a beacon-based switcher video if I didn't have 2 beacons, because I want to be able to swap between using a gold beacon base and a diamond one. This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them. That's right. I've duplicated the module over, and now we've got two different modules, one for the diamond beacon and one for the gold beacon. And this can technically be expanded for loads of modules. We could have 5 or 6, but I mean, every time you add a different module, it takes longer for the system to process because this flying machine has got to travel much, much further. So I'm going to leave it at 2 for now. And once I've got all the redstone in, sort of to control all the logic, then I'll decide if I want to add in a third or fourth beacon color. So, yep, I've done a dry run of this already, and it actually works. So, using the levers and stuff that I've placed around and all the buttons, I can flick them in a specific order and turn this diamond beacon into a gold beacon. But for now, I'm going to start hooking up all of the different lines, because as you can see, we've got levers, 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 buttons, levers, buttons, just everywhere. Levers, buttons, just buttons, buttons. I mean, there's so many of them, and they all need to be hooked up together, so we've got a single central control panel where we can choose to switch the beacon over. So I'm going to start work on that now, and then I'll be back with you.
And back I now am, with what I would argue is probably my second biggest redstone project I've ever built. Now fully complete. That's right, I've done a bunch of redstone work. It's been super hard work. Yeah, I've just been overwhelmed by this project. It's been insane, mentally huge. As I said, the second biggest project I've ever done, and it's my first ever project with flying machines, which makes it even more mind-blowing for me. And it's something completely useless, which is just crazy. Something to switch the base of a beacon, which at this point in the game does nothing, it's just aesthetic. What I'm hoping though is that eventually changing the material of a beacon will do something different. But anyway, I'm sure you're all dying to see it in action. I certainly am. I've added a little indicator light to this button to show when it's in progress. So let's hit the button and let the lag commence. So I've now turned off all of my particle settings, lowered my render distance slightly, and made graphics fast instead of fancy. And now we're ready to hit the button, because yeah, sometimes it does create a lot of lag, like so, especially when recording. The walls lower down, we get the first flying machine to come in, and this is cool, it's all fully automatic. We get this coming down as well to block it off. So as you saw, we started with diamond, so keep that in mind, we're starting with diamond. So yeah, that wall comes in to block off the redstone here, and it blocks off this beacon so it stops here. And then we get the other flying machine coming back through this central cavity where we started, and we see it retracting away. And then once that reaches its reset position, what we actually get is this flying machine come back up to get out of the way, which is super cool. And I've tried to not have too many bits moving at once so it's not super laggy. Obviously this could be made faster, but you just freeze up your whole screen and you wouldn't be able to see anything, so there wasn't really much point. Yeah, we get this beacon pushed down and this one pushed up. Sorry, I should have explained that in more detail. I was completely distracted then. And then the flying machines retract so that they're out of the way. And then we get this guy pushing the beacon in. There are a bunch of sub-steps that we missed as well, like all of this stuff, pushing away the staggered pattern like I showed before. But I should get out of the way. We get these pistons extending as well to stop this. And I'm actually inside the redstone contraption. But we should see the beacon stops here. This wall starts to retract here. And we've got to get out just in time for this side wall to close up behind us. And let's head to the front and see it's actually worked. We've got a diamond beacon fully replaced with a netherite beacon. I would argue that is the largest flex you can do in Minecraft. I mean, imagine if this was in survival, switching out a diamond beacon for a netherite beacon, fully automatic with redstone, and now it's reset, we can do it once again. So I'm going to give it one final demonstration because I'm so happy with this, and I want to show you that it does work the other way around. Just remember that this time it's the netherite beacon and we need to switch it for diamond. So you should actually see that we get this wall coming down first instead of this one. And we'll also get the opposite action. This one will be pushed up and this one will be pushed down. But yeah, this is a super cool project. And if you want to see more flying machine stuff, leave you some ideas down in the comments, or just leave your support down in the comments. Hit subscribe, hit like, all that jazz. I mean, I've been working super hard on this project. I'm super proud of it. And there's a bunch of more serious projects that I've done in the past. There's a bunch of kind of silly projects like this one I've done in the past as well. Let me know which ones you prefer. But yeah, look at this. I mean, yeah, imagine if this was built on survival. It would be a lot of work. But maybe it's not doable. I mean, it is doable. But would you want to? I mean, This is crazy. Yeah, my second biggest project, as I say, the biggest one is in the top right of your screen now. It's actually a bank that I've built in Minecraft using redstone with like a map display and stuff. It's super cool. But yeah, this one is a very different sort of project to that one. And yeah, my first project with flying machines, as I say. So I think I've learned a lot from this project, and I hope you have too. We've got the final few stages now, so let's watch this from an outsider's perspective rather than inside the box like I did last time. You see the beacon gets pushed into there, it stops. That starts to retract. We should get the beam lighting up like so, the beacon beam. We get everything retracting away to create this nice flush room that, yeah, there's no visible redstone in this room, which is really cool. And actually, you don't need the glass front. You could have this open in like an actual room as part of a room. But I just think that the glass front adds something nice to the build and makes it seem more impressive, I think, when you have a beacon behind glass. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed, remember to leave a like, comment and subscribe down below. And also let me know, actually, if you want to see me expand on this build and add it with a selection panel so you can select different beacon colours. And I'd also probably focus on making it a little bit faster as well, so that you don't have to wait as long between all of these, because as you add more beacons, it takes an exponentially long amount of time to switch between the two. But thanks for watching. My name's been Vortex Warp, and this video has sadly come to an end. Goodbye guys, see you in the next one.